Hello, everyone. My name is Nelly Vargas, and today I will be talking about my final project podcast, which will include three sources that we discussed in class, as well as other sources that are external to what we learned, but it also relate in a way to my main point. So, throughout history, it has been noted that racism has always been a problem. Historically, it all stems to the origin of slavery for the main culprit. In the book titled The People's History of the United States, written by Howard Zinn, he states, "There is not a country in the world history in which racism has been more important for so long a time as the United States. And the problem of the color line, as W.E.B. Du Bois put it is still with us." It is very important to note that this problem of the color line can still be argued today as relevant and true due to the long lasting impacts of slavery and the hatred of white people towards black people. It can be said that this prejudice is also applied within black people and black culture. This prejudice can be manifested in several different ways, but it is a result of generational trauma and inner self hatred some black people hold within themselves. This can be seen in different varieties scattered throughout history. In the short story titled The Wife of His Youth, written by Charles W. Chestnut, follows the story of a man named Mr. Ryder and his Blue Vein Society. The Blue Vein Society is a socialite group of light skinned African Americans who exclude darker skinned and working class African Americans. The society itself had no actual requirements other than light skin. Some envious outsider made the suggestion that no one was eligible for membership who was not white enough to show blue veins. Mr. Ryder himself is actually dark skinned, but is excused because of his refinement and almost straight hair. Eventually, Mr. Ryder decides to throw a ball for his Blue Vein Society and hopes to win a hand in marriage with Mrs. Molly Dixon, a woman who he fell in love with. The main purpose of the ball is to highlight the superiority that biracial African Americans hold in society. Mr. Ryder says, "I have no race prejudice," he would say, "but we people of mixed blood are ground within between the upper and neither milestone. Our fate lies between absorption by the white race and extinction in the black. The one doesn't want us yet, but it may take time, but take us in time. The other would welcome us, but it would be for us a backward step." This proves that Mr. Ryder has some inner self hatred towards himself as a black man and other black people. He uses the fact that he's mixed as a scapegoat to hold himself on a pedestal, and admits that although he won't be embraced completely by white people, he cannot turn to black people because it will be a step down from the pedestal in society that he holds. Later in the story, Mr. Ryder meets a woman named Liza Jane, a dark-skinned woman and former slave who asks him if he has seen or heard of her long-lost husband named Sam Taylor. Mr. Ryder took great interest in her story and assured her that he has moved on. Liza, however, is persistent that Sam wouldn't do that and that he even went looking for her when she was already gone. Mr. Ryder took her address and sent her on her way. After this, Mr. Ryder spent the rest of the night looking at himself in the mirror. During the night of the ball, Mr. Wright explains the story of Liza Jane and Sam Taylor. He claims that Sam is much like himself, and if Sam should acknowledge Liza if she failed to recognize him. Mrs. Dixon said that he should acknowledge her, and everyone else agreed. Finally, he brings out Liza Jane and introduces her. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "this is the woman, and I am the man whose story I've told you. Permit me to introduce you, the wife of my youth." It is very important to note that Mr. Ryder has inner self-hatred and is conflicted to choose Liza Jane, his true love and former slave, or Mrs. Dixon, a light-skinned socialite. The part where he looks in the mirror is symbolic and represents a self-reflection on his actions throughout his life. Mr. Ryder couldn't bear to hide the fact that he was Sam Taylor and of his former life. He understood it was wrong to continue his life with Mrs. Dixon and chose to be who he really was. The Blue Vein Society is what fueled his self-hatred and other hate within the black community. It has also encouraged Mr. Ryder to move ahead in society by marrying someone like Mrs. Dixon. Racism and slavery is what drew the color line in the first place. This hate is brought within black communities and affects them without even the white man present. Sometimes in black communities, some may choose to pass as white to get ahead in society. It is hard to live life normally as a person of color. people of color have to endure the long-lasting effects of racism with a target on their backs. Some people of color who possess physical white passing attributes such as light skin color or hair type may use this tactic as an abusive advantage to present themselves as not part of an quote-unquote inferior race. In the book The Passing, written by Nella Larson, follows the story of Irene Redfield and her childhood friend Claire Kendry. Irene sometimes passes as white due to her fair complexion. This allows her to move within the white, rich, socialite groups of New York thanks to her husband, who's a doctor. Irene herself also expressed some inner self-hatred, which was the root of her passing. It wasn't that she was ashamed of being a Negro, or even of having it declared. It was the idea of being rejected by any place, even in a polite, tactical way, in which the Drayton would probably do it, that disturbed her. Irene was passively acting on her self-hatred in order to not be kicked out of the white-only places which she enjoyed indulging in. Claire is more fair-skinned than Irene and is married to a white man named John Ballou. John is under the impression that Claire is white. John is also openly racist, and also makes racist remarks in front of Irene and her friend Gertrude. After this encounter, Irene realizes the danger that passing can do. Risky, I should say it was risky, my God, what a word, and the mess that she is liable to get herself into. Not only can passing affect the person physically, but as well as mentally and emotionally along those with them. Eventually, Claire pushes her way into Irene's life and social circle, mingling more with Black Harlem. Irene knew this was a dangerous game, but not only was Claire playing a dangerous game of passing, but now she involved Irene into her problems of inner self-hatred and racism. No, Claire Kendry cared nothing for the race. She belonged to it. Claire, however, after talking to Irene, expresses that she wants to mingle with Black people again. This is some self-reflection on her part, realizing that her inner self-hatred was also morally incorrect. Another instance of this passing is presented in the book Plum Bun, written by Jessie Redmond Fawcett. The story of Plum Bun follows a family of two sisters, their father and mother. One of the sisters, Angela, is fair-skinned like her mother, while the other sister is dark-skinned like her father. As the story progresses, Angela realizes that she can walk the color line due to her fair skin. This allows herself to portray herself as white. After spending some time with her mother, she realizes at first that the great rewards of life, riches, glamour, and pleasure are for white-skinned people only. Secondly, that Junius and Virginia were denied these privileges because they were dark. This is the first glimpse into the inner self-hatred she passively pursued throughout her life. The passing encounter made Angela to believe that she shouldn't associate herself with dark-skinned family and her race altogether, because that smear white passing privilege could easily be revoked if anybody was aware of her race. And she began to wonder which is more important, a patent instant on the fact of color, or an acceptance of the good things in life which could come to you in America if either you were not colored or the fact of your racial connections were not made known. Angela's conflicted on whether she should be proud of who she is or if she should fabricate a new identity just to continue living the life she always dreamt of. She is conflicted that she is white passing but cannot associate herself as white because she is Black. Self-hatred can be seen in a variety of ways even in the contemporary world. One example is the Afrocentric view concerning Jamaicans who bleach their skin is that they suffer from self-hate, a result of lingering psychological scars of slavery. The study claims that I hypothesize that skin bleaching is caused by low self-esteem. Another example is within the social looking glass, which reflects that Blacks are inferior, quote-unquote bad, and generally detestable. This is revealed in the theory and research concerning the notion of Black self-hatred, of review and reinterpretation. The last example is in the unemployment as conduit of Black self-hate, pathogenic rates of Black male homicide via legacy of the antebellum, which claims that Black males have internalized norms via legacy of the antebellum that embrace violence. Their ability to obtain gainful employment can serve as a powerful alternative to the pathologizing influence of self-hate and to approaches emphasizing homicide to the exclusion of others. Not only is self-hate being present in society in general, but also sometimes in the workforce. In conclusion, the color line, racism, and inner self-hatred cause a warped perception in the lives of many African Americans. Due to what the white man caused, and white privilege, many Black people choose to identify with a new identity that deprives them of their Blackness and culture. This can be seen in passing or hate against biracial Black people. Unfortunately, this is an issue that has been seen throughout history and will continue on in the future if no societal changes are made.